it's seriously unbelievable at times. You know, the whole Sonic vs. Mario thing, I like to look at it as a message to the video game world. An important one, strictly because what was and what is now. One I feel the need to talk about, and one I just acknowledge. It's weird to not acknowledge it, because it's one of the most successful and remembered franchises in gaming history. Heck, in all of media. With countless series that just couldn't capture the same success or just stopped altogether, there's always that one that never stopped doing what made it so great in the first place. But what made it so good? Why is Mario so good? Well, it's very easy to answer. Super Mario, like it or hate it, is probably the greatest gaming franchise of all time. It's the only one I know of that can create platformers, sports titles, dance games, all while being consistent. With the explosive launch of Super Mario Bros. In 1985, the world was greeted with something new, something casual. There was no understanding of anything other than jumping and moving left. As you jumped, you were forced to break blocks that contained power-ups. These power-ups were super easy to understand. After all, the game didn't have many controller options. So when you got a fire flower, there were only a few commands you could do before figuring it out. What I'm trying to get here is, at the time, there was no game like it. There was no platformer like it. Before this, you had Donkey Kong, Duck Hunt, Ice Climber, nothing that even came close to what the game represented. The casual market evolved and Mario became a well-known figure. A guy that could jump, shoot fireballs, use momentum. This guy didn't have any weird gimmicks like stretchy arms, a pogo stick, running fast. No, the game was super simplistic. Since Super Mario Bros. Had the advantage of pioneering this feel, it was already looked upon as a series that would spawn a franchise, and obviously that followed soon after. Almost every NES Mario game is remembered in a positive light. Mario 2 lost levels, kept the exact feel of the original game, but greatly increased the difficulty. That didn't make the game bad by any means, it just didn't really add much. Mario 2 USA, on the other hand, took a weird turn, by taking the familiar playstyle and adding characters, but removing a number of simple features. Finishing the stage is different, defeating enemies are different, level design is different. It opened more options, but it came across as something almost completely foreign, because it kinda was. Mario 2 USA wasn't even a Mario game, so why does it make Mario good? Easy. The game itself wasn't bad, but people knew that this didn't feel like Mario at all. I like to even say that there is no true Super Mario Bros. 2. That rhyme was so unintentional. For some game series, straying so far from the original game 2 games in could kill it off. Definitely not the sequel to Super Mario Bros. I assume that people were expecting bigger with Mario 3, and that's exactly what they got. Mario 3 ditched the weird gimmicks from Mario 2 USA and made Super Mario Bros. With tons of added content. Varied worlds, better enemies, more challenge, more power-ups, more replay value, more music, better control. This was Super Mario Bros. Done better. Understanding how much of a win that is helps, because at this point in time, there were games that were just as well received as Super Mario Bros., aka the super casual platformer. So how do you make it fresh again? Make it better by introducing never before seen things without changing what made the original great. Sort of like the transition from Mega Man to Mega Man 2. During the NES lifecycle, this needed to be done. Mario was established as a series that could only grow, and later reached its 2D peak with Super Mario World on the SNES. This familiar trademark proved this so strong. With the handheld spin-offs and the classic Super Mario Kart, there were games anyone could hop into without feeling the need to play the previous games first. The story never really connected, and each game had something fresh to offer. This doesn't take away from games that have continuous plots, in fact some do it quite well. Mario is just easy to get into. You usually know exactly what you're doing with every game, and it helps that every game released during the time were no real competition, not even on its own system. So when the Super Nintendo came around, it did what it knew it had to do: make new franchises and expand on established ones. Mario remained consistent through both generations, being more experimental in the latter. Super Mario Kart took Mario tropes, characters, and ideas and put them into this revolutionary kart racer. The genre itself was already sort of a thing, but not to the extent of Mario Kart. Want proof? Check out these 7 other sequels. Mario also identified with the RPG genre well. Nothing groundbreaking, but proving that it was possible helped Mario's already great credibility. So it's obvious that Mario used to be good, but how did he remain good for all those years leading up to now? Well, take his jump into 3D for example. If Super Mario 64 being the first 3D platformer wasn't enough, the game was already considered an instant masterpiece. Why? Because it took ideas from 2D Mario and translated it into 3D without making anything complicated. Anyone could pick the game up and tons of people were amused by what it stood for. With Mario being the first franchise to merge into 3D successfully, it leaves people wanting more, and that's exactly what we got. The jump is important important because it stayed close to its roots. Same storyline, same enemies, it was literally 3D Mario. Mario's classic days didn't force too much onto the new generation because of how simplistic it was. 2D and 3D being completely different makes this remarkable. Mario was able to revolutionize both without feeling dated. Like 64, Super Mario Sunshine didn't disappoint either. With Mario growing even bigger along with the rest of 3D gaming, the series felt the need to innovate. Platformers had already grown at this point, so how could Mario strike again? See, the franchise was already in a position to where it didn't need to push major boundaries because it carried tons of spin-offs to please N64 owners, Game Boy owners, SNES owners. So whatever big Mario adventure Nintendo had planned would have done fine had it just expanded on 64, similar to what Mario 3 did. But that's not what happened. Instead, we got a game that strayed away from the norm that ended up working anyway. Why? Because it was still a Mario game at heart. It had familiar gimmicks, it had similar progression, just with the story and unique gameplay attached to it. What Super Mario did so well was respecting its audience. After revolutionizing like 3 generations, you come to the point of expecting something fun and unique with every console. And to my knowledge, Mario has never disappointed with its main series. Sunshine proved that it's okay to be weird, it's okay to adjust a great formula. At the status the franchise put itself, it barely even mattered what direction it took. Adding on to one of the most revolutionary games ever made is all you needed. Sunshine was weird, it was interesting, it almost reminds me of what Mario 2 was to Mario 1. And while dominating the GameCube and GBA, Mario only proved that it was a series that expanded on what it knew best. Being consistently relevant, being accessible, it was that one platformer that did this throughout all of its generations up to this point. Especially with the fall of the Dreamcast, Mario wasn't just a franchise, it was literally Nintendo. Obviously, right? And what did Nintendo do with their next console? It used what worked with the past installments and removed a few ideas to make a fresh, grand experience. Super Mario Galaxy, what I believe is one of the greatest games ever made. Worlds were bigger, replay value was massive, and the game was still fun to play. The sequel, same thing, it literally built off what Galaxy did, adding Yoshi, more content. The game just screams near perfection. What built up to where the series is now is some of the best gaming has to offer. That alone could answer the video title. But the idea of sticking to what works so well and being a really consistent casual experience helped make this franchise so accepting. You see other companies or game series fail because of their inability to be consistent, in an effort to strike audiences with something never seen before, and they tend to lose support and acclaim in the process. For Sonic, it worked up until 2004, and Mega Man certainly could have gone the Mario route, but it doesn't work for everyone, because these other franchises are so contained to one gimmick, whereas Mario is simply casual platforming, with creativity behind it. You can point out Hotel Mario or Sticker Star all you want, but those don't matter. But the amount of games Mario has, the great ones will always overshadow the bad ones. The series is that good. The series is that good because of consistency, expansion, and appeal. Zelda is very similar. Now, can I say that I prefer Mario over every series? Absolutely not. I took the Sonic route because I had more fun with it. The games were cool and extreme, while Mario was, well, Mario. With cool and extreme came consequences, and well, if you know anything about Sonic, you know what I mean. But this video was to highlight how great the Super Mario series was and still is today. It's 30 years strong, and still gets review scores that most platformers only could dream of. The reality.